Hello everyone and welcome. So today it's something slightly different. We're going to talk about how my love of photography came about, the history of photography in my lifetime and how it's changed in the short time that I'm about. I mean, we are talking 60 years. Excuse me, but it took a while even then for it to get to where it is. So in, what would it have been, about 78, 79, I got into photography. I went away on a school trip for a week, and while I was there, the guy who was running the course was a photographer who had his own darkroom at the centre we were staying at. And he would take a small group at a time into the darkroom, teach them how to develop films and how to actually print off the pictures. This was all black and white because it was the simplest system to do. So for you youngsters out there who don't know, this is called an SLR camera, single lens reflex. You put a 35mm film in there, you set your aperture using a light meter, you spent time focusing on what you were taking a picture of, and you clicked. You then round on and you took another picture. Click. You then had to send the film off. So you went down to your local chemist, you took your film in, you sent it off. You waited 2 or 3 weeks, your film came back and you looked. Sometimes you had fabulous pictures. Sometimes they came through with a little sticker on saying various things. Focus not right, this, that and the other. You couldn't go back and reshoot unless you went back to the place with another film and did the same. You had no way of testing whether or not the picture you took was good enough until the film had been developed. And this was the same with what we call movie film or cine film. Cine photography, it used to be called in those days, ladies and gentlemen of a certain age who don't know. And it was a similar system. You had standard 8 or super 8, and it was a short film. You put it in your camera, you sat there, you did your filming in the same way, having to set the aperture and get it all correct, and you did your filming. And it wasn't until it came back from being developed and you put it into a projector that you could see whether or not you had got what you wanted. And if you hadn't, you had to go back to the area where you filmed it, another film in, and film it again and hope that you got it that time. In those days, cine photography was quite an expensive item to do. So we go on and we then get to what is known, excuse me for bending down, a digital SLR camera, the DSLR. That was brilliant. That came along, you could take your picture, you could look on your screen and see virtually instantly what your picture was like. Personally, I think it's taken a lot of the skill out of photography, and as we go on in the story, we realise how much it has changed the way people think about photography, blogging and so far. So if we now just stick with the movie style of things for now, we went from the cine camera, Super 8 or Standard 8. You then, if you were very rich and lucky, were able to get one with talking on it. If we go into a bit about editing at this point, so with Cine, if you've done your film and you need to edit it, you actually need to physically look at the pictures on the line and cut out and stick together the two bits, editing. This then, of course, if you're doing it with sound, made it incredibly difficult. But it was a skill. We then go on and we have video cameras come along in the 80s. These were big bulbous things which you had to carry on your shoulder like this, and you could film. You, of course, could look back at what you had recorded and see whether or not it was any good and refilm. It was still very difficult to edit these, and you needed incredibly expensive equipment to be able to edit the film at the time. Or you would use two video players, and you'd be recording from one video player to the next one, and you would stop by pausing one video, let the recording you had done run through, and then release it. And that was very dodgy editing in those days. This was like this for several years. In fact, even up until the birth of the internet, you didn't have anything different than a video camera or video photography. The digital cameras of the day were not very good quality. They were quite grainy, and if you wanted a high quality one, you had to spend an awful lot of money. If we look into this, we can even go back to the fact that if we go to, shall we say, you can see I'm thinking here, that would have been about 98, and my father-in-law was a printer, and I can remember I used to do the odd job for him, and I went over to a printer's who he did work for to drop off some work, and the printer showed me his photocopier he had just had installed, and it was a colour photocopier. Not only was it a colour photocopier, but it was a copier that could do virtual photo quality prints. I went back and I told my father-in-law, and he basically put me in my place and told me it was impossible. A piece of equipment like that had never been invented, and he didn't think it would be invented in his lifetime. He later apologised after having visited the shop to see if what I was saying was correct, and was amazed by what he saw. He then went on to say something very interesting in the same conversation, and that was this machine had produced the death of the printers as such. And so has happened with the photographic industry. The companies that used to develop the films no longer exist. In fact, at one time, in the late 90s, you could get a 135 film developed for a couple of quid. And now, a 135 film to be developed will cost you an awful lot of money, because there's very few places in the country that actually develop them. And finding the films for the cameras is quite high and expensive as well. Most of the photography now done by people out there is done on their smartphones, their iPhones and such like, or small sports cameras. We now have these 360 cameras which can film 360 degrees, and also you can then edit on software on your computer from various different angles on that photo at any one time. And I have a wonderful little drone, and the equipment that has inside it and its capability is astounding for someone. I'm 60, and for me to think of the information that's inside that piece of equipment is incredible. So now we go to the editing suites. I use an iMac, and you can get programs for free where you can edit this system. If you are a beginner or a total novice, you could use AI. There's the artificial intelligence where you just upload your information, you tell the program what you want and press a button, and within seconds there it is, all sorted for you, ready for you to upload. I myself don't like AI in that respect. There are certain little things I think are funny when you use it to create comic images and such like. But it won't be long before the AI systems take over everything. For instance, if you're a filmmaker and you want a script writing, you don't have to now employ a script writer to write that script. You just tell AI the basic information about your script you want, and within seconds it's printed the story. It's even put it into script format for the different actors. So how do I feel the future has come? Well, I personally want to spend more time thinking and composing the photos that I'm taking. I want to spend more time thinking about the artwork and my blogs and trying to get more of an art into it rather than what I can do to get more viewers. It seems to me now that, especially on YouTube, that what people are after is more and more and more likes, more and more people subscribing to them, so they can be famous as being YouTubers and not actually enjoying the art of photography and videography. Yes, I want to learn more about using the editing suite, but not as an AI system. Using the editing suite myself and doing the work, I want to get more use out of my cameras and my drones and various things like that, to enjoy documenting my travels and my hobbies. I hope this has been an interesting little insight into my life and the history of photography itself. If we go back to when my daughter was young, say about 10, this was still the way you took photos. There were a few people out there who were rich enough to be able to afford digital still photography, but the video photography was still done in the old style, where you had the tape that went inside it. And it was not for several years later before the modern digital system that we all know today came into power, and now everyone records on their iPhones and they edit on their iPhones, and they totally forgot how in a short time we have progressed. See you all soon.